Hello and welcome to A Piece of Cake Utah. I'm your host, Katherine O'Donnell, and today I'm going to show you how to use a shaped pan and the star tip technique to make a great looking cake. It's really simple and fun, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so first of all, you're going to take a shaped pan. This is one of my favorite ones. It's one of the newer ones. It's just a sunflower pan. Really fun, simple, easy design and stuff, and yeah, it's really fun. I've also made a lion out of it. We've done like specific Gerber daisies, sunflowers, lots of different flowers out of it. The lion, like I said before. What else have I done? Yeah, you can usually use these pans for several different techniques, so it works out really good. Okay, so we've got our cake here that I've already baked. And oh, really quick, about baking your cake and having it release out of the pan easily. Wilton makes a product called Cake Release. It's kind of like a little liquid that you can pour in here and spread around with a pastry brush. That works really good. You can put shortening in there and dust it with flour. That would work really good. I just use a non-stick spray. I spray the pan with my non-stick cooking oil and spray the whole pan and then put my cake batter in there, and it comes out just fine. So the only thing I don't like about the greasing it and then putting the flour inside of there is it tends to give a harder crust to your cakes. And so if you don't want to have to worry about that, if you want to have a nice moist cake and everything, then I stay away from the flour and shortening version. Okay, so we've baked our cake. It turned out really nice. The first thing you want to do when you're doing the star tip technique for a cake is you're going to crumb coat the cake. Hence my kind of crummy looking cake. But I've used the colors that I'm going to use with my star tip technique as a base color here. We've done yellow on the petals and then some chocolate for the inside. You want to use this technique so that when you do your stars on top of that, you won't be able to see the cake through your star tips or your stars. It works out really nicely and just covers everything up. However, the bad thing about doing this crumb coating is I've lost all the fun design that I want to make sure stands out on the cake. So I'm going to show you how to remedy that problem. And you can do this with pretty much any cake pan that is shaped like this. So you're going to take your cake pan and we're going to turn it upside down because this is what our cake looks like. We're going to take a piece of wax paper, and we'll set that aside really quick because the first thing we're going to do is take some piping gel, some clear piping gel. And this is kind of the opposite or the reverse piping gel pattern transfer technique. That technique that we talked about in another show, you take a picture and you cover it with your wax paper and you copy it and then you put it onto your cake. This way we're actually going to copy the cake pan itself, put that onto the wax paper, and then transfer it to your cake. So here we go. So I've just got a nice round tip. This is actually a tip 7. It's rather large, and that's good because I want to make sure that I get enough coverage with my piping gel. And I'm just going to go along here and copy or trace the pattern that I want to show up on my cake. Now luckily this is a pattern that's kind of repeating. So if I didn't have a large enough piece of wax paper to cover the whole pan, I could just do one side of this and then trace it onto my cake and then just move it over and use it again on another side and ongoing like that. So it works out really nice. So we're gonna do this all the way around. I want to get those inside petals too, just any part of it that you feel like you want to transfer onto your cake. Okay, so we've just done a little side here just so I can show you this technique. Now we're gonna, take our wax paper and gently place it on the top here and let it fall down over the piping gel. And then I'm going to take my little paintbrush here and I'm just going to gently tap it so that the piping gel sticks to my wax paper. And you can kind of tell by looking at the wax paper when the piping gel has stuck to it and when it's not. You don't want to push too hard or else you're going to lose some of the pattern as it transfers onto the wax paper. And because this is a round pan, we kind of have to work with all the little bumps and grooves. It's not going to be perfectly flat on here, which is fine, because once I get this transferred on there, it'll be pretty easy to tell. Okay, so we've got this part transferred onto our wax paper. We're going to peel it off gently, and you can see we've got our, there we go, we've got our pattern transferred onto our wax paper. So now we're going to move this cake pan aside with one hand here and slide our cake back over. And then we're going to position this onto the cake, and that's why I really like using the wax paper rather than the parchment paper. There we go. Because I can just see through it a lot easier. And I'm going to shift this over just a little bit so that it falls right on there. Okay, excellent. So now we've got this on there. Now I'll take my paintbrush again and just go back and connect my piping gel with my cake. Make sure it sticks on there. And the great thing about using this clear piping gel is it's clear, so you won't be able to see any marks or lines afterwards. You'll be able to cover it up really easily with your icing. Okay, so we've got that transferred on there. Now we're going to peel it off gently. And we've got a nice little marking for our cake here from our piping gel. Now, if you look at this little page right here, you can see that there's still some of the piping gel left on here. I can transfer it again. I can use it again on another side of the cake. That'll work out really well. So I really just like using the piping gel. I like making sure that there's enough on there to use multiple times, and it works out really well. So we're just going to go over this one side here just so you understand the technique. I'm going to transfer my tip onto my kind of oranges color here. Now this color, you want to start off with a round tip. When you do this star tip technique, you want to do an outline. You always want to do the outline first and then fill it in with the stars. You can't fill it in first and then do the outline. It just doesn't combine very well together. Okay, so take some of that piping gel out of the tip. Okay, so we're going to start here at the top and create our line. Come down to the bottom. Just following our little piping gel pattern that we left on here, going up and down. And I like using, especially for the sunflower here, the two tones. I'm going to fill it in with yellow, but I've got it outlined in orange so you can kind of see the two different tones. And then this flower also has kind of a line down the center, so you want to do that. I like using a much larger round tip for these outlines because a lot of times it'll get lost or buried underneath the stars. So I really like using a larger one. That way you'll be able to see it. And we'll turn this around so you can see. Here's our lined outlines right there. And that's really good. Okay. Now we're going to take our chocolate and we'll make our line here too. We're going to have this lined up kind of on top of that line there. Okay, so we've got our yellow. We'll do our stars now. There's really no perfect technique for filling in with the stars. The one thing I like to do, and this is just me, is I make sure that I do the stars that come up next to an outline first, and then I go fill in the rest of them in the center. Because a lot of times, as you can see here, your stars are kind of pushing those outlines, and I like to have a lot of room to push them around so that if I have some extra space, it's in the center where I have room to deal with everything, if that makes sense. Okay, then we'll come back in here and fill in some of these. You can see how this center one is just kind of getting buried a little bit, but because we used such a large round tip, it turned out good, I think. Okay, you can still see it. Now in between here, we'll fill in our stars and just cover up our whole cake. And you won't be able to see those crumbs or anything. It'll turn out really nice. And there we go. And that's pretty much what you're going to be doing the whole time, is just filling that in right there with all those stars, filling in all the gaps and everything. It's a really, really fun technique. It's really fast and easy, but it looks nice. You can cover a whole cake pretty much with just one little bag of icing. It doesn't take very much. A little bit goes a long way, which works out really nice in this case. So I would just fill this all in with my stars, continue my outlines and everything, and then it's good to go. You can write on top of that after you've done the stars and everything. You can take your round tip and write something on there like happy birthday. Usually with cakes like these, I'll make the cake board underneath it a little bit bigger, and I'll write my happy birthday or whatever message on the board itself. And that way you have plenty of room to have your fun star technique, but then you still have your message on the outside of it so that it doesn't interrupt or cover up anything that you've worked so hard on. The same thing goes if you have facial features or things like that. If you've got maybe like a teddy bear shaped pan, you can use that technique with the piping gel and transfer his face onto the cake and everything, and then you'll want to outline it first, do all the eyebrows, the nose, everything first, the facial features, and then fill those in with stars. You can always come back with your outline tip and kind of fill in places that haven't quite shown up as well as you wanted to. You can always take your paintbrush and kind of move things around a little bit, but that's basically what you're going to do. I do like to use smaller star tips rather than the really large ones. There's also a 3-star tip that works really well and really fast, but the smaller ones really help with the tiny little places that I need to get in with a star or something like that. So usually like a tip 14 or 16 works really well. This was a tip 18 that I used today, and that was just big enough, I think, for the rest of this cake. So I hope you've enjoyed this little spotlight on how to do a starred cake, also how to transfer the pattern in case you've lost it after doing your crumb coat and everything like that. It's really simple to come back and do it over again. Some of the shaped cakes even have a little insert that you can just lay down. It's a little paper insert. You can lay it down and copy that, trace that with your piping gel, and then it's a little bit easier rather than doing it on top of the cake pan itself. Transfers a little bit easier that way. But I really enjoy working with this technique. My kids love it too. It makes everything look so special and so fun. So please feel free to email me with your questions or comments. I can email you back or address them on the show. You can email me at apieceofcake21@gmail.com, and I'll be able to answer any questions you have, hopefully, and if not, we'll find out together. We'll see you next time.